So, let's get started. Let me explain what we're doing here first, okay? What we've got here is a tier list based on zombie apocalypse from some of the most famous, some lesser known, pieces of zombie media. Some video games, some movies, some shows, some both or all three, or you know, whatever else, right? So we have quite the variety here, okay? I think we have, I don't even know how many we have. I know we have at least 30. Yeah, wait, no. It's probably more like at least 17. I'd say that's, yeah. All right, so we have quite a few selections here. We're going to be ranking these babies based on, I'm cutting that out of the video. That was kind of, I didn't like the way, sometimes I don't like the way I word things, or like it comes out weirdly, so then I cut it out of the videos, but of course with the stream, I'm just going to keep rambling, right? Yeah, we're going to be rating these zombie outbreaks, zombie apocalypse, all of these based on how doomed you are in the apocalypse, okay? So let's get straight into this. We got our categories here. We're going to start with the bottom, which is, we always start from bottom to top when it comes to these tier lists. So we're starting at the bottom here with You Have Legs, right? Okay, this is for zombie apocalypse that, like, anybody could survive, right? Like, even grandma with a little bit of luck and a sprinkle of shotgun shells could I probably should have said, like, a sprinkle of gunpowder, right? Would find themselves surviving this kind of apocalypse, all right? These are the ones that are pretty mild, pretty tame, and they're usually centered around a specific area, and they're really not that big of a deal, right? Typically, you won't find many examples of this in zombie media for one reason. Zombies can run or they can't at all, right? That sounds stupid, right? Like, well, duh, they can run or they can't. But I mean, like, they either run like Sonic the Hedgehog or they're walking toward you at minimal speed, right? So that's usually what this category is going to be confined to. And also, just a very important thing I want to point out here, every single zombie outbreak and disease and whatnot on this list is caused by different things, which doesn't seem important, but it's very important, because most of the, okay, not most, some of these on this list, you're not even ever going to make it into the apocalypse stage, because you're probably dead before it ever even starts. And by dead, I mean infected, right? And then in the case of The Walking Dead, everybody's infected already, and you just have to die first. So it all varies. Some of these are straight up, well, okay, I know one of them is straight up caused by magic, right? Or at the very least, it's very supernaturally based, okay? So anyways, yeah, You Have Legs, right? I don't think there's going to be very many in this category. I only have one in mind, but maybe there will be a couple others. I didn't include really stupid stuff on here, right? So, like, we're not doing Attack of the Lederhosen zombies. That's not happening, okay? So, like, otherwise that would just go straight down here. Also, another thing I want to mention, I am not including two things. I'm not including I Am Legend, because those are Dark Seekers. They're not really zombies, right? I mean, they're more like mutants, more like mutated humans, and they have the intelligence of a Neanderthal. They don't really operate like zombies, you know? Like, I mean, kind of. Most I guess reviewers do consider it a zombie movie, but they're not really. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm not counting I Am Legend. And also, the other thing is no Necrovirus, okay, from Plague Inc., because the Necrovirus or any other disease in Plague Inc. could be in all these categories at the same time, because it all depends on what's, you know, who's mutating it, who's doing what, who's playing the game, right? So I'm not counting that. Anything that's like has zombies in it is not what I'm counting. We're talking about actual zombie media here, where it focuses on that specifically, okay? So no Marvel zombies, okay? I just want to make that clear. No Marvel zombies here, because Marvel is not all about zombies. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's take a look at the next category. You'll die of boredom first. This is not necessarily to insult the media that it is. Rather, it's quite literal, in fact. You're more likely to die of boredom or loneliness than you are the zombies in this case. And I have one entry on this list that, if you know what I'm talking about, when I bring it up, you'll probably know that I do mean that literally. When people get bored in dangerous circumstances, they do stupid stuff. And that's more likely to get you killed than the actual threat at hand, right? Also, I do want to emphasize, in most zombie scenarios, humans are your greatest threat, not the zombies themselves, especially in, like, The Walking Dead. But I'm not going to be ranking it based on that, because that has nothing to do with the zombies themselves, right? Or it has little to do with them. Okay. Well, it does in one case, but we'll get to that. Next, we have Kiss Grandma Goodbye. This is for the middle ground, right? This is for zombie outbreaks where it's like grandparents, probably little kids, typically pregnant women, people in wheelchairs, the special needs, people who are blind, all of them, they're all dead, right? I mean, they're the guaranteed ones to go. And then a lot of regular people, Discord moderators, Twitch streamers, they're all dead too, right? Actually, that's a lie. Some of them have really good security and live, in, like, huge mansions and whatnot, so, like, they typically have some advantages the average person couldn't. They can afford more guns. They're in the United States, things like that, right? But I'm saying in general, most fat people are going to die. And then, what else? People who are generally unfit, probably going to die. In this scenario, it's a toss-up of whether I would survive or not, really. But Grandma, she's dead. I mean, there's no saving her, right? Next category is where things really ramp up. This is where most things are probably going to be. Screwed with a capital S. Oh boy. I was actually planning on putting this in the second to highest category, but I changed my mind because you'll see some of the things in this list. In most of these scenarios, the average person is screwed, right? Now, it's important. There are a lot of things to think about when thinking about a zombie apocalypse, one of which being what your greatest threat is and when that greatest threat is. Okay, so, like, for example, in the middle of the apocalypse, is it as dangerous as it is at the beginning? Most of the time, no. Okay, sometimes, with a few of these on this list, yes, absolutely. Okay, it all depends on whether it mutates or whether it just decays or what happens, right? And then, like I said, one of the entries in this list is supernatural, so that's never even going to happen, right? But, yeah, the beginning of the outbreak may be worse than later, and so on and so forth. So, like, this is for things where most people are going to die, and that's how you get an apocalypse, quote-unquote, in the first place, right? Next is God is targeting you. This is for zombie outbreaks where you might as well just bend down and touch your toes, right? Because there is no shot that most people, I'd say a good 95% of people, are going to even be able to survive this, right? I'd say being generous, maybe 80% of people, okay? Most of the survivors in a situation like this are going to be ones that are born into the apocalypse, right? So these are not going to be your average Joe working his 9 to 5 at 7-Eleven, right? It's going to more likely be the doomsday prepper, the gun fanatic, the dude who served in the U.S. Special Forces and has no human attachment to anybody, and then the people who are born and raised into the apocalypse. Those are your survivors, okay? You're not going to have Coach or Ellis from Left 4 Dead because everyone's going to be dead, which is funny because, the next category. The next category is Caleb said he was right. Now, you may be thinking, why would God is targeting you be below Caleb said he was right? I'm going to go ahead and roll the clip.
In fact, we have no clue what's going on. Completely in the dark here. We might as well just lay down and die. In fact.
Yeah, you might as well just lay down and die, right? Like, there is nothing you can do here. Your odds of survival are so low that in this case, in the category up here, and possibly here too, these are those apocalypse scenarios where it's honestly a mercy to just eat a bullet and then you're done, right? Because it's like, oh, okay, it's a flash and then you're dead, or at worst you survive the gunshot wound, right, and then die off in a little bit. But it's like, in these scenarios, dude, everyone's dead, okay, or basically everybody is dead, right? You have to be living, you have to be using wonder weapons to survive this kind of apocalypse, okay, or have some kind of supernatural abilities. Once again, we'll get to that. Now that we've gone through all the categories here and, prepared ourselves, let's go ahead and start with the first one. The first one here is, as you may or may not be able to tell, Dawn of the Dead, the 2004 version, specifically, the movie. We're going to put this in Kiss Grandma Goodbye. There's a few reasons that I'm doing this, putting it here specifically. Let's start with a few of the more obvious points. Dawn of the Dead, okay? Few things. First of all, the main characters in this movie are idiots, okay? They are numbskulls. They do just about half of what you would expect, and they do it incorrectly. They do everything incorrectly. It's incredible, okay? The main character, the nurse lady, I guess she's the main character. I mean, you do see her from the beginning of the movie to the end, so yeah. She's somewhat competent, right? Like, in this apocalypse, most people do still die, but, like, average people that, like, don't work out a lot or anything like that, they can still make it. It's just difficult, okay? Honestly, Dawn of the Dead is one of your more bare-bones zombie apocalypse, where there's nothing special about it, and nothing unique about it. Now, I know the 2004 version is just a remake of an older Dawn of the Dead, which is obviously, like, one of the classic zombie movies. So it is the founding father, or not the founding father, it's one of the founding fathers of zombie movies, right? Not the remake, but you get my point. So there's not really anything particularly unique or special about it in that regard, but, like, still, the apocalypse is pretty basic. The zombies don't die of exposure or starvation or dehydration, so they're not very realistic in that sense. They can run, but they run about as well as you'd think a zombie would. What else? Are they durable? They're more durable than you'd think a walking corpse would be. But they're not exactly durable compared to other zombies on this list, especially one of them, okay? And then, what else? There's no special infected. The infected are as dumb as you'd think a zombie would be. And then lastly, some of them are pretty stealthy, but I think that's more just movie BS than it is the zombies themselves, okay? Most of the time that characters die in the movie is due to stupidity or due to something that's, like, beyond their control. So I don't really... Yeah, this one's kind of right down the middle. Alright, next up is The Walking Dead. Now, you're either on one side of the spectrum or the other with The Walking Dead. I have an image from the games. However, this, of course, includes the show, which the zombies are a tiny bit different, but not really. Okay. You're either on the side of, this is one of the worst zombie apocalypse you can be in, or you're on the side of, psh, I could beat that, okay? For me, I'm sort of in the middle, because I see both sides of it. So I'm going to say screwed with a capital S. Here's why. The initial outbreak is the part that's concerning. The virus that is present in The Walking Dead is the wildfire virus. You want to know why they call it that? Because it spreads like wildfire. Who would have thought, right? What a shocking revelation. No, they name it that because everybody's already infected before they turn into a zombie. So when I don't know what actually, like, triggers everyone to start turning into zombies, since everyone's clearly already infected from an airborne virus, but I don't know. Everybody, once the outbreak starts, everybody who dies that doesn't have, like, their head blown off turns into a zombie automatically, and they turn quick too, quick relative to, like, some of the other entries in this list. So the initial outbreak, if you're present during that, your likelihood of dying is pretty high, right? I'd say there's like a 75% chance you're gonna die. Car accidents are going to be everywhere. Everything's going to shut down quickly. Cemeteries are going to be a no-go completely. Cities are going to be a no-go. Anywhere where there's gangs are going to be a no-go. Or were, I guess I should say. So yeah, you're going to not want to be anywhere near those locations. As for once you're in the apocalypse, once you survive the initial outbreak, this apocalypse really isn't that hard to beat, right? The zombies are slow as dirt. They're absolutely... They're probably the dumbest zombies on this list, okay? Which is hard because we're talking about zombies here. Most of them are not known for their intellect. The zombies in The Walking Dead, they're about as dumb as it gets, okay? Which makes sense because they're a walking corpse with no conscious thought, right? Why would they think? As for realism, they're basically immortal in terms of like starvation and dehydration. So you have to shoot them in the head or stab them in the head to shut down the undead brain to kill them. Nothing else kills them, especially not like weather. Okay, maybe there's a few occurrences. You can cut their jaws off and they become docile, and then there's some other stuff you can do to them, like there are whisperers that are able to like control the zombies, sort of. So like there are ways to beat them. They're not that hard. Honestly, in The Walking Dead, the people are the biggest problem. Okay, next up we got State of Decay. State of Decay, I don't know. I'm gonna put it in It's one of these two. It's either the top of this tier or it's the back part of this tier. I'm gonna say the top of Kiss Grandma Goodbye. State of Decay is interesting because obviously it is a video game, so like difficulties vary and whatnot. The reason I'm ranking it in this spot is because in State of Decay there are a lot of survivors. Okay, there are survivors everywhere. So like clearly this wasn't deadly enough to just wipe the board out. Another thing is also most zombies are just they're just there, right? They can run, they're not very good at it, and when they attack, they can trip, so they trip most of the time, so they're not actually very coordinated. Speaking of coordinated, the zombies in terms of attacks are pretty coordinated. They can be commanded, but on their own, regular zombies, they're just there, right? There are hordes, quote-unquote, but hordes are like, at most, I don't know, like 15 zombies. It's nothing compared to The Walking Dead, where hordes can get in the tens of thousands, right? In this, the real concern are the special infected, right? So like plague hearts, which I'm guessing is, this plague, which is most likely a bacteria, caused the outbreak. So the plague hearts, they control whole areas, right? Infection is easily, inflicted upon a person. However, one detail that will become very important later for a few of the others we may mention is a cure. If a cure exists or a vaccine or something of the sort exists in the universe we're talking about, that will probably lower its ranking a bit, okay? Because some of these, like The Walking Dead, there is no cure, you're just dead, okay? And then others of these, you're beyond a cure, okay? It's like you wouldn't even consider it. So in universes where there is a cure, no matter how scarce it is, then that's going to bump it down, okay? So there are cures, and an average person can make them, so they're not very difficult to make, apparently. What else? Zombies are not super durable, besides juggernauts and ferals. The ferals are dangerous, but it could be worse. Juggernauts are ridiculously overpowered, but I guess it could be worse. There's things like screamers that are not a huge deal, bloaters, which are in like half of these outbreaks, and then there's some other zombies. They're not a huge deal. That's why I'm putting them here. Okay, next is The Last of Us. I'm going to put it in God is Targeting You because, most people do get killed off from the initial outbreak. Now, in The Last of Us, it is a fungus, right? It's a version of a cordyceps. It's kind of weird. I don't know. I think The Last of Us itself is good. Not part 2, though. Not that. I think it's good within itself, but the disease in it, I don't know. I've kind of always questioned like how it gets around how it got around so fast, and really just how it operates. I don't know. It seems a little bit far-fetched in terms of the initial outbreak. Once everything's in the apocalypse, though, it's pretty consistent and pretty normal. A lot of zombies become what you see here, clickers. So they use echolocation to find things. I'm assuming based on the clicking, and they're blind, right? So like you can creep past them when they're right in front of you, but they have great hearing, quote unquote, right? There are other infected variants too. The zombies are decently fast, and infection pretty much guarantees you're screwed. However, one detail that I will note, even though Ellie's the only like confirmed person to have this, you can be immune to it. So there is immunity. In some of these universes, immunity's like a sick joke, right? You just don't see it. Which, realistically, of course, there's always going to be someone immune to it if it's a regular disease. Keep that in mind. But, I don't know, it doesn't really... It doesn't change much. I mean, I'm kind of just... I don't really know how to feel about it. I also feel like there are worse scenarios, right? Like, you see a decent amount of people that are still living in The Last of Us, and zombies, I think, die off on their own. Some of them do. Most of the time, they just mutate, okay? So, like, there is a progression that they go through. So, yeah, we're putting it up there. Next is World War Z. I'm putting it in, I'll put it in Kiss Grandma Goodbye. Here's why. There are weaknesses to it. I'm mostly thinking of the World War Z movie here, okay? For starters, you don't really see things mid-apocalypse. So, like, there are still a bunch of people running around, right? Which, I mean, yeah, it's more of, like, just when it's set. But I don't know. I can't really see this outbreak being, like, an end-of-the-world scenario. It just, I don't know. Everything seems too weirdly structured in World War Z. I don't really like the storytelling in the movie. It's just kind of, it feels like it's all over the place. You can be like safe from the zombies even when they're all around you, because if you're sick with pretty much anything, the zombies don't detect you as being uninfected because they can't differentiate sick from unsick with their own disease. Don't ask me how it works. I do not know. That reminds me of The Walking Dead. Another reason that I put it here, that I sort of subconsciously remembered but didn't really point out, was you can cover yourself in walker guts, right? So they're insides, to not be detected by the zombies. However, it's very risky, and most of the time someone does something stupid and gets killed doing it. But that is an option you can do to not die. So, like, there are other alternatives. World War Z, I don't know, it's kind of... I don't really know how to describe... The zombies also heavily rely on each other, so, like, if you don't have an area with a huge population, it's probably not going to be that big of a deal. The zombies seem both intelligent and dumb as a rock at the same... Like, you have to think on an individual level, how are the zombies thinking? Because, like, in a horde, they seem intelligent because they all work together in a huge mass to go over objects. But then you think about it on an individual level, and you're like, okay, well, that zombie just ran at a wall and dropped to the ground and grabbed his cheeks, right? Like, and then the next 3,000 zombies did the exact same thing. So you're like, okay, well, what's the zombie on top thinking? You know? Oh, yeah, I'm going to jump over my friends and get to this human? And then he gets shot, and then what, right? I don't know. The whole horde thing where they pile on top of each other, I think that's stupid. It's like... There's layers in which it doesn't make sense and in which it's weird, and it's like, okay, well, what about, like do they not crush themselves? Do they not get trampled? Do they not fall to their death? Like, I don't know, it's weird. Okay, next one's Shaun of the Dead. We're putting this in You Have Legs, right? Now, of course, this is no fault of Shaun of the Dead itself, because it's a comedy movie, right? Not to mention, Shaun of the Dead is an amazing movie, right? I mean, you got Simon Pegg, Nick Frost, right? They're absolutely perfect in this movie. The zombie apocalypse in this movie is actually, by the end of the movie, now, it does get pretty sad at the end of the movie, but the military shows up, pretty much saves the day, and then zombies are used for entertainment by the world, and the world's safe once again. There's not really an apocalypse. It's more just an initial outbreak, and then, like, everything's chill afterward. Which, to be honest, is actually one of the more realistic circumstances, right? Using zombies as entertainment, finding a way to exploit a threat to amuse yourself, right? It's what humans do. What else? The fact that the zombies actually can be beaten back by a military, that seems to be left out of a lot of these scenarios. And the disease is, I don't really know how it spreads, like, by itself, but of course it spreads through bites and whatnot. And the zombies are very slow, right? They're, like, almost as slow as the walkers in The Walking Dead. Are they as dumb? No. I mean, they're like basic zombies, right? They're not a huge deal. I'm putting them in this category here. Okay, what's next? Next we have Dying Light. It's in one of these two. I don't know. I'll put it here, just to be safe. This is the Harran virus, if I'm saying that correctly. I don't know how it impacts the rest of the world, so I don't know if it's like straight up apocalypse mode, because I know the first game is limited to Harran City, right, or Harran City, or whatever the thing's pronounced as, right. So I know that it's not very widespread in the first game, at least, or at least not based on what I see. There are a decent number of survivors, so, like, it's not last man on Earth kind of thing. There is a cure, I remember, at one point, but I think you're, like, ordered to burn it for whatever, or destroy it for whatever reason. I don't remember why. Or maybe it's a vaccine, or it's something of the sort. So I know that's in there. That's somewhere. As for the infected themselves, you do not want to be caught by these infected. Now, most of the regular infected are your typical walking zombies. Then there's runners, which are, I mean, like most of the entries in this list, they're pretty much the defaults for those. Then you have the real concerns. Things like volatiles, which I don't even know how to get into. Actually, I don't know. Volatiles are weak to UV. Like, okay, I'm going to drop its ranking a little bit here, because I do remember the Harran virus zombies. A lot of them, or at least specifically the volatiles, are weak to UV light. So they do have a specific weakness that allows you to kill them. And then, what else? There's a lot of other weird infected that I'm not really sure how to describe. I mean, if the main character can go through a bunch of the game without having to use a gun, then I think the zombies are probably not that bad within themselves. I don't know, it depends. You do not want to get caught outside at night with volatiles running around, I'll tell you that much. Okay, we're moving on to Dead Island. God is targeting you, because, as you can see here, this thing... If you've ever played Dead Island, or I've played Dead Island, what was it? It was like Rising Tide or something? I don't know, I played two of the Dead Island games. I couldn't even get past, like, the beginning part. The zombies are ridiculous. They can knock you down instantly. They run extremely fast. They do incredible amounts of damage. I saw a zombie holding a weapon one time. He hit me with like a hammer or something. So that's points for uniqueness. Most zombie outbreaks, they don't know how to use weapons. Heck, even like Left 4 Dead, they don't actually use a physical weapon, right? There's zombies with armor, there's buff zombies, there's all kinds of wacky stuff. Dead Island's meant to be a bit more of a comedic game. So like, the zombies are not like horror enemies, but dude, they're overpowered. That's really all I need to say. Speaking of overpowered, Dead Trigger. Caleb said he was right. There you go. If you've ever played Dead Trigger, take a moment to realize what I'm talking about, okay? let's begin with the first detail. In the first Dead Trigger game, the only human you ever physically see anywhere is yourself. Okay? Like, when you're physically interacting with stuff. Now, of course, Dead Trigger is a mobile game, right? So, like, it's limited in terms of budget and whatnot. However, if you look at the number of people you interact with in this game, it's limited to about maybe 12. If I'm even remembering that correctly, it's probably less, okay? That's how many people you interact with at all in your entire time, okay? Other than that, everyone's dead. That's not the main reason, though. The other main reason is the number of zombies is absolutely incredible, and they do not die. Ever. They don't die. You can empty an entire AR magazine into one of their heads, and they can just shrug it off. They just think that's cool. Okay, what else? The Juggernauts or Brutes or whatever they're called in the game, those things are ridiculous. Those require like 2 whole guns to kill one, right? What else? The Spitters basically are incapable of missing. Armored zombies, that's not really the zombies themselves so much as it is just them wearing armor. But those are incredibly difficult to kill. Zombies are decently coordinated, right? They seem to at least come up in waves, right? Which at least indicates that they're somewhat intelligent. And overall, it's just not a fun time. And if you look at some of the technology in the game, that means that they've overran, military forces with far better technology than we're looking at now, and still won over them. So, yeah. Dead Trigger 2, 2 words. Titan zombies. Enough said. We're moving on. We're moving on to probably the most classic example in this entire list. Black Ops Zombies. I'm going to put this above Dead Trigger. There we go. This is the entry I've been talking about the whole time with magic and supernatural crap. I do not know a ton about the Black Ops Zombies lore, because the lore of Black Ops Zombies is almost as confusing as learning the lore of Five Nights at Freddy's. Almost. It's not quite there. It's not that confusing, but it's pretty close. From what I understand, I believe it was World War I, okay, if I'm thinking back to origins from Black Ops 3. In World War I, the Germans attempted to find, basically a solution to win the war. And through their scientific advancements, I believe it was, Richtofen. I'm not entirely sure, I believe Richtofen was involved with the experiments. They basically ended up opening up, like, cracks in reality, and it would lead into other realities. So that's how they got, like, if you ever wondered how the Pack-a-Punch machine works, right? Like, you put in a weapon and then suddenly it shoots lasers and crap. That's because it's from a different reality, basically. And then same with, I'm assuming, like, some of the other things as well. One moment. So, God. Man, my head hurts. Jesus. Sorry. Someone just walked in. It's alright. Okay, what was I saying? Black Ops Zombies. Right, so they basically, that's how you get a bunch of, like, the wonder weapons, like the ray gun, obviously, is not a human weapon, or at least not human in, like, the normal sense. And then, of course, that's how you get the zombies, which, by the way, are virtually endless. I think they can still infect you by biting you, I think, if I remember some of the cutscenes, but I'm not entirely sure on that. They can appear out of the freaking ground. They can appear from any direction, virtually. They kill you incredibly fast, become increasingly more difficult to kill, and if we're thinking of, like, Black Ops 3, there are giant zombies and weird bosses and whatnot, okay? So it's just the worst scenario you could possibly be in, and most of it is supernatural. That's the worst part. There's no disease to it. It's just there. Also, you find basically little to no excuse me, Jesus. little to no survivors ever at any point in zombies, so besides who you're already with. So, like, that's important to mention. Okay, moving on. The Night Eats the World. This one is the one I created this category for. You'll die of boredom first. In The Night Eats the World, the main character, he's in France. Okay, he lives in France. So, first of all, that means there are not guns everywhere. Most of the entries on this list are at least reduced somewhat by living in the United States, because there are guns everywhere, ammo everywhere, and of course, because it's an apocalypse, you're not asking for, they're not asking you for a permit first. You just go into somebody's house and take all their guns and ammo, right? So, like, you have enough firepower, at least. But, in this case, he's in France. Now, he gets lucky and happens to live next to somebody within his apartment that does have a gun. It's a double-barrel shotgun. It could be better, but, like, he could have no gun at all, right? And the guy has a decent amount of ammo, so there's that. The main character, he basically wakes up after going to a party, getting roped into a party. He falls asleep in a back room, or closet room, or not closet room, but, like, I guess it's just a side room. He falls asleep, wakes up, everybody's dead, okay? There's blood on all the walls. Well, he doesn't find any bodies necessarily, but there's blood everywhere, everything's knocked over. It's pure chaos. Basically, the apocalypse happened overnight, which kind of shows how bad the spread of it was, so I guess that's something to keep in mind, but because you never see it physically, I can't exactly do anything to, like, reference that, right? So I'm not moving it on the list just because of that implication. What else? So he opens up a door, sees his girlfriend as a zombie, and then he sees, not his girlfriend, his, like, ex-girlfriend or something, and then sees another guy as a zombie, and then he basically figures out what's going on. He sanitizes the place, he gets all his resources, and then he pulls a Will Smith from I Am Legend, right? And gets all his stuff in order. So the guy's able to survive just stably on his own. And the biggest reason of why I'm putting it in this position is because zombies in that movie are not really... They don't really attack if they don't see you, right? Heck, they even hear him a lot of the time, and they either ignore it, or it takes a lot of noise to build up to where they eventually start going for you. And that's because he's literally playing the drums, okay? And this is where the category's name gets its name. Boredom will kill you first. He's obviously alone. He becomes so lonely and so bored that he'll do anything, right? He plays drums, he makes mixtapes, right? Like, he starts doing stupid stuff. He tries to go outside and get a cat, right? Almost gets killed for it. He keeps a zombie in the closed elevator and talks to it, which is one giant hazard waiting to happen. But hey, he doesn't kill him, so, like, or the zombie doesn't kill him even when he lets him go, so, like, there's that. But yeah, boredom will kill you first. He doesn't really die at the end of the movie, so he does survive, but there's not really much for him to go off of, so, like, I don't know. One thing's for sure, the zombies are not the thing that's going to kill him first, right? Okay, next thing is Train to Busan. Dude, just throw it straight up in the top tier and don't even let me, like, if you've ever watched Train to Busan or anything within the Train to Busan universe, just bend down and die, dude. Just don't even try. It's not worth trying, okay? You honestly would rather just shoot yourself. These zombies are Sonic the Hedgehog. They're so fast, it's incredible. Okay, if you've seen a clip of Train to Busan, if you haven't, once this video's done, go ahead and click off and watch one of those. And go ahead and see. They are insane, okay? There's no special infected or anything, but this universe doesn't need that. They're incredibly fast, they're strong, they're not, like, idiotic, right? So they're not like brain dead Walking Dead zombies, pun intended, right? So it's like these are pretty much just your elite regular zombies, okay? These are your level 100 zombies with no special infected. I don't really need to say more other than just you're screwed fighting them. Okay, also they're terrifying. I should mention that. Next up, this is going at the top. the green flu from Left 4 Dead. I don't even know how to explain this that hasn't been explained already by, like, how many people have done videos on the Left 4 Dead green flu virus? I'm trying to think of his name. Does all the Left 4 Dead content. I can't think of him. I think maybe, I don't know if Rona Key Gaming's done a video on this, on the green flu yet. I don't know. I know he does it for movies. I know he's done it for a few of the entries in this list, but I don't know about some of the other stuff. Yeah, this, I don't even know what to say about the green flu. That hasn't been said already. For context, it is a flu for a reason. It spreads to just about everybody in the world, if not everybody in the world, by the time you even ever see anything. Future me here. A little bit of a correction. So, by the time Left 4 Dead 2 begins, it's implied that the east coast of the United States, and probably later or soon, the entirety of the United States is overcome by the green flu. However, it's uncertain of whether it spreads to the rest of the world or not. However, most likely it does, and it would do so fast. In Left 4 Dead's universe, they have something called CEDA, right? CEDA, that attempts to, like, contain the flu. It does not work. They fail miserably. The only people that are still living, okay, this is one of those examples where, besides Black Ops Zombies, where it's literally last man on Earth kind of thing, right? Where you are literally the last people that are on Earth. There's the main characters who are all carriers. That's an important detail. They're immune in the sense that they are not zombies, but they do carry the virus. So when they, for example, the Left 4 Dead 2 survivors, they get picked up by a helicopter, they infect the pilot, and then they crash, right? And they infect him just by standing near him, all right? If even that. They're literally just in the same vehicle, and the guy gets infected. So they're not exactly even safe to be around. The only people that this doesn't apply to are the military, which are pretty much just a military remnant, and they're pretty, I don't know. I mean, you can hardly even say that they're really doing all that well within themselves. Not to mention they kill a bunch of people who were carriers to begin with, so, like, go ahead and kill more humans while you're at it, you know? Yeah. I mean, the special infected in Left 4 Dead, dude, just, you have no chance, okay? And then everybody mutates differently, too. That's the thing. So you have the smoker, it's pretty much theorized that each special infected is based on a different kind of person, right? So, like, the jockey probably had some kind of spinal condition beforehand. The hunter, it's implied that it was somebody that does parkour, things like that, okay? You're doomed. There's no chance. There's literally zero chance. If a zombie apocalypse is being compared with the Flood from Halo, you know there's something wrong. Now, of course, nothing on this list is that insanely powerful, but, you know. The Flood's not exactly a zombie outbreak. Okay, next is the movie Alone. We're going with Screwed with a capital S. Here's why. The zombies in this movie are almost as basic as it comes. There's no special infected, and they're not exactly super difficult to kill. However, they are probably the most intelligent or second most intelligent zombies on this entire list. Left 4 Dead 2, I forgot to mention, or Left 4 Dead in general, has incredibly intelligent zombies to the point to where, like, they are pretty much an intelligent being within themselves, right? Like, the special infected actively think, coordinate, target certain things. They ignore the boomer bile that the other regular zombies attack. Like, it's pretty much fully implied that the special infected are actually just thinking organisms that have a different agenda, right? Just skewed by how the virus controls their mind. But when it comes to the zombies in Alone, they are scarily intelligent, okay? Like, one of them remembers where the main character's apartment was, because the human that was infected had been there before. I don't remember if they say it in the movie, or if it's just implied, or if somebody explained it this way, but the zombies, like, the person is still technically inside, okay? Like, there is still a person behind everything, but they're just fully altered by the disease. So that's a part of it. Yeah, I mean, they can also climb very well. They can properly plan. So yeah, these are pretty bad. However, they are very basic and default, so like they can't get that high. Okay, next is the T virus in Resident Evil. I'm putting this here because, well, for starters, this isn't like a world-ending event, right? This is the Raccoon City incident, and then it happens elsewhere as well in the first game. But other than that, the T-Virus, which, by the way, I'm only including the T-Virus because the others are not particularly zombies necessarily. And I also don't know enough about like the Ouroboros virus and whatnot to like even if that even creates zombies really. I know Wesker has it, but yeah, we're talking about the T virus here. It infected the water supply. That's how you get it. I'm almost positive that you can't get infected by being bitten. Like that's not how it works. Or maybe it is, and it's just, I don't know. The main characters get bitten all the time, and I don't think they're immune, so I don't know what that's all about. There is a vaccine, which, for whatever reason, the vaccine serves as, like, a cure equivalent, which isn't really how vaccines work, but, you know. And then, what else? I'm not technically counting the tyrants, okay? Even though I have an image of Nemesis here, I'm not necessarily counting them because those are more of their own thing, and also they were directly sent from Umbrella, so like that's not just the zombies acting within themselves. There are plenty of special infected though, like lickers and things like that, that are all massive threats. So this goes pretty high, but it's not a world-ending event, so like there's that. And also it's the T virus is often complemented with other things, right? Like humans having specific agendas, or Birkin having the G virus, things like that. Like that's not the same disease, so it's not all one entity, you know. Okay, next is I just realized I forgot 2 of the entries in this list. Okay, alright, so now that I've added those 2, because I forgot 2 of the entries, I added Zombieland and 28 Days Later. Okay, continuing on, next up we have Wreck. I'm gonna put this in, it's one of these 2. I don't know. There's 2 dimensions you can look at it from. I'm gonna put it here. Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna put the Walking Dead above these 2. Come on. There we go. Okay. There's a reason I'm putting it here. Let me explain. In Rec, which for context is a Portuguese movie, okay, so it was made in Portugal, and then it was renamed Quarantine for American viewing, right? So it's the English version of the movie that follows mostly the same events and things like that. Anyways, in Rec, if I'm remembering it properly, basically the cause of the disease itself is a demonic parasite. Like I said, not everything on this list is your typical virus, bacteria, and whatnot, right? There are special occasions. Black Ops Zombies is a supernatural threat, so is this. Now, this is a physical thing, of course, which adds to why I'm putting it this low, because they are actually able to reverse what it does by removing the parasite. However, you do have to go to the initial source, and also the zombies are incredibly fast, incredibly aggressive, and they take forever to kill. And they spread incredibly fast, and also the time it takes to turn is insanely quick, so most of the time. It is kind of inconsistent a few times, though. So, yeah, this goes decently high. It's also basically caused by a demon, so, like, there's that. That kind of adds to the points a little bit. Alright, next up is Cargo. Slap that in the bottom tier. Heck, should I even... I'm going to keep that lower than Shaun of the Dead. Here's a few things. First of all, in the movie, there are things that imply that, like, the disease in Australia, the fracking virus, is, like, already well documented in how to prevent it and things like that. So, like, they know what's going on. There are still functioning governments and functioning, operations. People are living, I mean, the characters that you follow seem to be living somewhat normally, right? And the main reason I'm putting it here is for two reasons. So it's not a main reason, it's two main reasons. First of all, the time it takes to turn is actually the slowest of any zombie outbreak on this entire list. Even Night Eats the World, if we're considering that as, like, if you think about the context that you're given, that means everybody was infected in at least under 24 hours, right? Or I should say at most under 24 hours, right? And at least probably minutes. The Walking Dead, it varies. Some of the other entries on this list, you don't know. Like Dead Trigger, Black Ops Zombies, you don't know how fast people get infected. Train to Busan's really quick, if I'm remembering correctly. World War Z, I think, is really fast. Shaun of the Dead, it takes a decent amount of time, but, like, even that's way faster. In Cargo, I'm pretty sure they go, like, whole days before the infection actually takes place. And the symptoms are very obvious. Okay, you can probably look up an image of the fracking virus and see what I'm talking about. The second detail are that the zombies in this movie, oh my god, they're dumb. Alright, they're basically just animals, right? They're easily baited, and if, like, a teenage girl with a spear can fight off these zombies, then you bet your cheeks anybody outside of Australia with a gun can probably kill every single one of them that attacks them. They're also pretty slow, if I'm remembering correctly, so there's that. Okay, we're moving on. Next is SAS Zombies 4, right, or SAS Zombie Assault 4. This is going up here because, now, one could argue this actually goes above everything else, but given the fact that it's a mobile game and there's not a lot of context or anything, I'm going to keep it where it is. Here's why. This is the only zombie outbreak on this entire list that crosses planets, okay? Not just Earth, it takes over planets. There are presumably billions of infected, at least millions, and the worst part, it doesn't just infect people, it can infect machines too. Now, it's never explained how it does this, but if you've ever played the game, it does do this. It can also create massive, weird infected. Assuming we ignore the supernatural kind of enemies, like whatever the shadow bosses, if you ignore stuff like that and take it for, like, a normal disease, then yeah, even within just that, it is insanely overpowered. And if we're looking from a civilian perspective, you literally just lay down and die, right? However, because the game's perspective is from elite special operations, then it's at least a little bit more survivable, although not by much, right? Yeah, it's going up here. You could actually argue it's above everything on this list because, it's the only interplanetary threat on this list, but I digress. Okay, next is Zombieland. I don't really know. It's one of these two. I mean, we'll do this. Yeah, I'd say so. Here, I'm gonna bump World War Z up a little bit. There we go. Okay, yeah, Zombieland, which points because this is the only disease in this entire list that's a prion, right? It's the only zombie outbreak caused by that. Even though Columbus multiple times calls it a virus, he contradicts himself by saying that because earlier on he mentions mad cow disease, which is a prion, and then Roniki Gaming did a video on it, and he also described it as a prion because that's what it's implied as. So that's what we're going with, because I trust him more than I trust a character who doesn't really know what the disease is. Alright, let me explain. So, let's see. The zombies are pretty bare bones. They are pretty survivable in terms of, like, how durable they are. Like, you can kill them decently fast. However, Columbus also mentions the double tap rule. So these are not your Walking Dead zombies where you shoot them and most of the time they're just, gonna lazily get back up and then somebody flinches at it and doesn't react in time, then it kills them. In this, zombies are on crack, right? They run very quickly. Okay, so like a person's top speed is probably how fast these zombies are running when they see you. There's a decent number of zombies, and the zombies in the beginning are pretty average in terms of like zombie and intellect, They're nothing too special. However, in Zombieland Double Tap, that's where things change. That's where you get the sort of special, quote-unquote, infected, not entirely. Now, because it's a prion, that means brain deterioration, right? Well, for some of them, I guess it does the opposite, and then for some, it does so. So, like, for example, the dangerous zombies are like ninja zombies, as Columbus describes them. You never really see them in the movie besides the moment he mentions them in, like, a little clip of somebody else getting killed by them. But, like, half of the entries on this list have those without mentioning them, so, like, that's good enough, right? What else? The Hawking zombie, like, it doesn't really matter if they're that intelligent if you assume every single threat you face is as intelligent as you are, right? Like, as long as you don't treat it like, oh yeah, this zombie can't get to me, then the Hawking's not that bad. And it also probably isn't as intelligent as, like, the zombies in Alone anyways. So, like, it's not that big of a deal. The only zombie that's really a major threat is the one they nicknamed the T-800. Those I can't really speak for. However, that's years into the outbreak. And only the main characters of the movie ever even encounter them, and they only encounter, like, 3 of them. Okay? Minus, of course, the 2 people that get infected by them. So I'm not really... And besides, it kind of gets canceled out because then there's the Homer zombie, which doesn't do anything. So, yeah. Okay, we're down to the last entry on this list, which is probably going to be my most controversial opinion. 28 Days Later. I'm going to put Screwed with a capital S, but there's a kicker to it, okay? Let's kind of get into this a little bit. First of all, 28 Days Later is the only entry on this list that has a zombie outbreak that is like an active threat to everybody, but it's actually defeated, okay? Like, defeated early on, and then it comes back later. So, like, in the first movie, 28 Days Later, it's limited to just England, right? So, obviously, because England is a set of islands, it can't get anywhere, right? And nobody takes it across plane yet, right? Or helicopter. So, yeah, there's no threat with that. However, I will mention this is supposed to be the most quote-unquote realistic zombie outbreak, on this entire list, right? This, of course, is the rage virus, is what I'm talking about. So these zombies, I am almost positive, can die of exposure. They can die of starvation, dehydration, that kind of thing. They're basically just people that are in a permanent state of extreme rage. So they attack everything that moves. And they're not even necessarily trying to infect you, just kill you, right? And then you happen to get infected because the virus spreads to the person, reanimates them, right? Now, of course, because we're just talking about zombies here, there's not really necessarily a realistic, quote-unquote, zombie apocalypse, especially one that runs like this, right? Like, you'd think, how would the body be running off of constant adrenaline without dying? The answer is, it wouldn't. It just dies, right? So, pretty much how the rage virus works is like somebody doing a necrovirus speed run on Plague Inc. Pretty much, it works in like a short term. So like, it sweeps across an area, infects people at incredible speeds, everyone gets killed, and then it dies off quickly. So like, it can be contained, unlike most of the other entries on this list, but it's still incredibly dangerous. However, it requires incredible stupidity to return. Which is why I'm mentioning it at this position on the list, is because 28 Days Later, it's a pretty good movie, right? I mean, you've got Cillian Murphy in there, so that's a plus. However, 28 weeks later, oh my God, has probably the single dumbest decisions in zombie movie history. It's incredible. Dude literally kisses his infected wife, knows she's a zombie, she's tied down. There are military personnel around him, guards, and they know he goes in there. They know he's in that area, and they just let him. Like, what are we doing here? Okay, they keep a zombie alive, which is arguable and questionable of why they do so. What else? Kissing a zombie and getting infected is like top 10 biggest chump moves in horror movie history. Like, that is ridiculous. That's dumber than the move Allison does in Saw 2, where she just sticks her hands in the freaking blade trap without reading or listening to the voice recording of Jigsaw. Right? That's the level of stupidity we're talking about here, except worse, because you endangered the whole human race. And then, don't even get me started on that kid getting on that helicopter, surviving, and then it spreads it to another country. Like, get out of here with that. Okay? The zombies, they just don't stop, right? Like, you can blast the crap out of them, and they just don't seem to die. I don't know. The whole setup of it seems way too much like a giant walking plot device. But, it's one of the most popular zombie franchises out there, so you can just go ahead and, slap me in the face. Alright, well, there you go. There's your list. We got Shaun of the Dead and Cargo down in You Have Legs Right. We have one entry with The Night Eats the World and You'll Die of Boredom first. We have 4 in Kiss Grandma Goodbye with World War Z at the top. Then State of Decay, Zombieland, and Dawn of the Dead. Then we got Screwed with a capital S. We're at the top, we have The Walking Dead. Then Dying Light, Alone, 28 Weeks Later, / Days or whatever, the whole franchise. Then Wreck. Then God is Targeting You. We had The Last of Us. Then The Dead Island Outbreak. And then Resident Evil. The T-Virus, specifically. Then at the top, we have Caleb City Was Right, with Left 4 Dead at the top, very top. Then Black Ops Zombies. Then SAS Zombie Assault. Then Train to Busan, and then Dead Trigger. There you go. There you have it. What more do you need to see? That is all for this time. Hope you all enjoyed. If you did, it's going up on YouTube. It's also going to be a live stream. I'm probably going to continue the live stream and then just cut it off here on YouTube. If you enjoyed, please leave a like, comment, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.